I'll have to give you some more of these.
I have this.
It's all set? It's all set?
Oh, yes, okay.
November 28th, 2017, this is a meeting of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee. This evening, we're going to be looking at the budgets for the safety building, emergency management, and also the fire department. A couple things before we start. Chief Rondo notified me today that he wants to take back his full-time prosecutor position and drop it back to the same hours as the prosecutor had last year. So I guess we need a motion just to change that. Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Did you hear me okay, John?
I didn't hear what you wanted.
Chief Rondo wants to take back that he wanted to get a full-time prosecutor this year. He wants to continue the way it has been in previous years, the 34-hour position.
Okay, thank you.
What line is that again?
That's going to be in the
Time.
100 series, probably 114,
117.
117.
Okay, so that's, we're still got that question mark on 114, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anything else
He just wanted to thank the committee. He thought a lot of good questions were asked last night. He appreciates our time. And he'd also like to come back before us to discuss the questions we had on the 100 series. I know that Leanne has some documents that she's going to prepare for us and get to us, so give you guys a lot of time to digest, to see what the chief is talking about, what his needs are.
John,
Yes, sir.
I was invited down to the police station today, and I went down this afternoon. Had a nice conversation with Chief Rondo and Captain Livy, and for me it was an informational session on that supervisory salaries line, and I can get into it later when they finally do come in. So I just wanted to report that I was down to see them.
Peter, if I could just ask you a quick question on the worksheets we have a 2018 request of $74,698. Is that
That's not, you're talking about the,
prosecutor?
that's not in the actual budget numbers. That was just attached at the back and not calculated in.
Okay, so what number do you think we should plug in there for the prosecutor? It says 2017 was 74.
Well, whatever's in the budget right now is what's in there, but then he's not, when he says he's not carrying forward with his request, the numbers on his sheet in the back of the police department budget for the prosecutor never made it into the book and into the calculations.
Oh, it didn't? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
And John,
Cut anything out, it's not going further with it.
they also gave me a copy of the flow chart, which you have in front of you, which you can pass around,
Okay.
past you there, please.
Any other questions? Okay, so and if I understand the motion is to remove the full-time prosecutor request from the police department budget and to return it to the part-time 34 hours a week. Is that how everyone understands it? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, does anyone have anything else before we start with the, I guess the first one's going to be the emergency management?
Yeah, I might as well go with this one, too.
Okay.
I made up a little sheet of a list of prior road maintenance warrant articles with a little bit of a historical aspect to it, as I gave you one, right? As per request of Bob Lohman and Rob, if you pass the rest of you. Yep. So, and we can discuss that at a later date.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Let's start with the emergency management, I guess is the first tab. Hi, Chief. Can I just get you to introduce yourself to everybody?
Certainly. James Pinio, Fire Chief, Emergency Management Director, Town of Wolfeboro.
with our emergency management line.
Yes, sir.
We've, if you remember last year, we came in front of the town requesting funds to update the emergency operations plan. Going forward, we've received the grant, the offset grant, to go forward with that emergency operations plan update. That will be forthcoming as far as updating that plan. Once that plan is put into place, we anticipate finding shortcomings within our own system where we'll have to make adjustments. And we can go through this line by line, and
Sure.
I can answer whatever questions you may have.
Okay, let's start with the 100 series. $200 series. $600 series. $700 series. $800. That's it on emergency management. 0.27% increase, or $14. Okay, now let's go to the public safety building.
With the public safety building, if you recall last year, we came to you for funds to relocate offices. That project has actually just started this week. The reason why we've held it off is we've got other work that we've got to do in the building, and we thought it was wise to bring an electrician in once during the year, toward the end of the year when we knew we had that money. So that project is actively taking place right now. And if we're set, we can go through it line by line.
Great. Okay, 400 series. What do you got planned for building maintenance this year, Chief?
Actually, the overhead doors were serviced in the public safety building today. That basically boils down to contractor coming in, making sure everything's in adjustment, operating correctly. So that has occurred. We've got the cleaning contract that comes in every other week to clean, mop, and buff the floors. And then general maintenance, we've got, in the apparatus bay, we've got a ceiling fan that is not operational, so we're working with that electrician to come in and replace the ceiling fans to circulate air in the apparatus bay.
Okay. $600 series. $700 series. Okay, that's it on the public safety building, 2.24% increase. Sir.
Series.
Yes, John.
You mentioned here that on furniture and equipment, $600. Really sort of puzzling that you include office chairs in this. I would imagine, I would feel that office chairs should be assigned to the specific office that's going to use them. So what else might you have here for furniture and fixtures?
Nothing, that line has been like that. I haven't made an adjustment As you can see, we really haven't spent any money in that line. So to be totally honest with you, this is in the event we break a chair, we break a table, we have a failure of some piece of equipment so that we can replace that.
A table where?
In either the combination training room for the police and fire, if we have something in the lobby we need,
Okay.
as far as...
In the common
people to see.
areas?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, again, it's a 2.24% increase. Dollars, that's $1,336.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the fire rescue. Anything you want to tell us, Chief, about 2017 as far as the department's concerned?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I did not hear
Anything you want to tell us as far as 2017, as far as the department is concerned? as
We've
you guys
had
did?
a very good year. We've been, we're right on the same pace as last year as for calls for service. We have not had any substantial losses, which is good. The biggest problem that we've run into this year, and we're looking at a new model with our new incident reporting system to track our costs of maintenance. The cost of maintenance for our engine one this year has been very high. There are a number of reasons for that. Some of them, I think, are design flaws. Some of them are items that were not caught in the inspection process when the truck was purchased. And I think some of it also has to do with low bid.
How old is that? Was it about 3 years old, that truck?
4 years old,
4 years old.
yeah.
Any warranty on it, or?
Most warranty items are a year to two. So, for example, we had a problem with a radiator. The radiator had to be pulled out of the truck. When the radiator was pulled out of the truck, there was the engine company saying it's not our radiator. You had the final manufacturer saying, we bought the radiator from this company. You went to the Modine company who supplied them with the radiator. They're saying, well, we only maintain a 1-year warranty. So it's very frustrating to sit there and work on this truck that's 4 years old and having some of the maintenance
Did that
costs
come from Appleton, Wisconsin? Company out there, or?
This was someplace out in Michigan, I believe. I'm not sure where the final manufacturer is, this apparatus was, to be honest with you.
Holy cow. Yeah, thank you.
You're an old Wisconsin man, aren't you?
No, I used to go out there, Packers.
Okay, we all set to start? Okay, we'll do the 100 series, supervisor salaries.
On 114, that's an 11% increase. Where does that come from?
If you recall, last year, under the wage study, there was a 2-year process to bring the firefighters and lieutenants up to where they belong on the wage study. We decided to do that over a 2-year process as opposed to a 1-year process. So this is the second step of that wage study implementation.
Yes, if I may, like the chief says, last year the firefighters were, when we went through the paying class study, were found to be very far below their counterparts in the comparable communities. And so it was going to be very costly to bring them up all in 1 year. As you can see, the new minimum rates that were proposed for the lieutenants would be, $4.50 an hour increase. For the firefighters, it was $2.31. So to avoid a huge increase last year, what we did is we split the increase into 2 years. The first piece of it took place last year, well, this year in the 2017
budget. The second piece of it is going forward next year in the 2018 budget. So it was a way of trying to avoid a very huge spike in this particular budget last year.
Thank you, David.
I have a question. Once we've completed those two steps, what's the ongoing impact of this whole exercise?
What's the impact?
The ongoing impact after we get through
Well,
the step
they
two?
will continue to get whatever increases that the other non-union town employees get.
Okay.
They are getting the 2.5%.
Right.
In addition to the other half of the increase from the pay and class studies.
So if all things remain equal, they'd be getting 2.5%?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly, yes.
Thanks.
I just got a quick question, Dave, just on the pay thing. If I'm a firefighter, step one, and I get, for some reason, I did a really fantastic job and I get promoted to lieutenant. Where do I go? Do I go to step one, lieutenant, or?
Well, we have in theory, we have a step system, but we don't really use steps except for the first step when they're brought in at a probationary basis as a new hire.
Yeah.
Then we'll move them up one step when they finish the probationary period. But we don't utilize the step system beyond that.
So how would I know what I was going to get paid if I was going to go from firefighter, step one, to lieutenant? Would I go to lieutenant, step one? Would I go from 1589
Well,
to
you have to be promoted to become a lieutenant.
I'm just trying to figure out if, I'm just
Yeah,
throwing
so
that out there. I'm just trying to understand it.
if a firefighter was promoted to lieutenant, they would go to that next rate, which I'm not sure right off the top of my head.
It would be,
what that
it would
is.
be the next highest rate from what they're at, currently at.
No, it would be the base lieutenant rate.
Could that be lower than what he's making as a top step firefighter?
Yeah, well, there is no real top step firefighters. All the firefighters right now are on an even scale. So whether you've been there for 13 years or you've been there for 1 year past probation, you're making the same wage as a firefighter.
Okay, so there's no steps within the firefighter.
There is none at this point. In theory, there is, but right now, the way that the wages are set up, the firefighters are all making, if you look across here, they're all making that same $18.93 an hour rate, whether you've been here for 2 years or 13 years.
Okay.
And then the lieutenants, I want to say that is 2013, so you'd get that jump to 2013 as a lieutenant.
So
Now, there is separation in the lieutenants,
Okay, that's.
but that's based on something that happened historically and the longevity of them in those positions.
Okay.
I believe that had to do with when they had the union in place.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So there's the chief, the deputy chief, and then how many lieutenants? And then how
Three.
many-
3 lieutenants,
Three?
and then
How many
6 firefighters, full,
Six
6.
full-time firefighters.
Okay, any other questions on the 100 series?
Curious on the overtime. We're going up another 13% on overtime. Is there any way we can keep that in check?
I can tell you, keeping it in check is difficult. Year-to-date, as of right now, we spent $58,000 in overtime. With the upcoming holidays, we still have $6,500 outstanding in overtime. So we're going to be running a deficit about $9,000 in the overtime line. What we did last year to absorb that, in the part-time wages, there is a line for Kelly shift replacement, which has been that way historically. That we've been using to try and absorb the overtime costs. You know, it's the nature of the beast. We have busy times and people have leave time. We've got to fill back that shift. And to keep it in check, we're doing the best we can. This is not far off where we were last year.
If I may also?
Yes, sir.
That most of the increase in the overtime for next year is due to the increase in the hourly wage rate, which you have to pay time and a half from. So that same number of hours, I believe.
Yep.
It's just a higher rate that comes into effect.
How's the call members? Are you getting any new members coming on board, or?
We have put one on this year. We've got 2 people who have shown interest, and the deputy and I have been working on, and we just haven't got an ad finished yet to put out. But we do have 2 more people who are interested. We've got 1 person that we put on this year. And the other thing that we've been doing is trying to get our existing call members a little better qualified. So for example, I just got word today that one of our members we sent to a driver-operator class through the New Hampshire Fire Academy. He passed that. So that gives him a good credential to be able to drive the apparatus. The next step in that process is getting him his commercial driver's license. But that's an ongoing initiative, and we're getting some more interest.
Some of the call member people, do they ever fill some of the Kelly shifts? Do they help on the Kelly shifts, or those pretty much?
They really don't. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, the call members we have, their time is at a premium. You know, whether they're out painting, whether they're out working for their families or other contractors, whatever they do, they don't have a lot of time to be able to do that. So there's that. Plus, you know, they're being asked to do this enough anyways, and they're coming in as much as they possibly can.
Okay, good. Okay, 200 series. $300 series.
John?
Yes, sir.
On the 350 medical services, are we still locked in with a contract with Stewart's for time going forward, or?
The contract, if I am correct, is for 1 more year, and we'll have to start negotiating
Next year then
spring
sometime? Okay,
for
good.
ambulance.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Selectman Murray, you'd like to talk to us about the hydrant fee? Okay.
I have a letter, Mr. Owen will be passing it out. It's to John McDonnell. It's from Kathy Eaton, the chairman of the Economic Development Committee, and I'd like to read it into the record. The Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee voted unanimously at its meeting on November 21st, 2017, to urge the Wolfeboro Budget Committee to reconsider its decision to reduce the amount allocated to the Wolfeboro Fire Department budget hydrant fee line item to support the town's water system budget because of its negative impact on the town's economy. Reducing the percentage of hydrant fees will shift more of the water system costs to the users, forcing an even greater rate increase on some of our largest users in Wolfeboro, which are also our largest employers. What may look like a small increase in water rates for an individual homeowner translates into thousands of dollars for our largest users, our hospital, our nursing home, our schools, and our restaurants. According to the 2017 demographic census report compiled by High Water Economics, 30% of Wolfeboro residents are employed in health, education, or social service jobs, 11% in tourism-related jobs like restaurants, hotels, attractions, and 7% in retail stores. That's close to 50%. We understand that for many years now, approximately 20% of the cost to maintain the system has been shared by all Wolfeboro taxpayers through what has been called a hydrant fee assessment paid under the fire department budget. This was done in recognition of the fact that the fire protection system provided by the network of hydrants in the downtown core benefits all residents because it protects assets and resources utilized by everyone in the community, such as our hospital, schools, library, town hall, public safety building, banks, grocery stores, pharmacies, post office, restaurants, and stores. Wolfeboro's primary industry is tourism, and the same system protects most of our lodging and attraction businesses as well. In protecting the buildings that house all of these institutions and businesses, the water system protects the heart of the town's economy, the place the people of Wolfeboro work. Thus, it is wholly appropriate that at least 20% of the cost of our town water system be shared by all residents. Considering both the negative impact water rate increase have on our town's economy and the fact that supporting our town's institutions and businesses and protecting the buildings that house them is in every Wolfeboro resident's best interest, the EDC urges you to keep the so-called hydrant fee at 20% of the Water Department's budget. And that's from the Economic Development Committee. I also would like to, I went on the website of the American Water Works Association, which is the association that came up with the percentage that should be allocated to hydrant fees. And I was very surprised to find out that it was established in 1881. It's a long-standing association. As Kathy pointed out, the hydrant fee is the community's cost for fire protection. And that is where the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen are differing on how much each group should pay, the user and the community. And so when I was thinking about it, I was the one who came up with the idea of putting out a warrant article to get the voters' opinion on how they would like to see us deal with the water rates. And I did that because the voters are the legislative part of our government. Opposed to the deliberative session, a warrant article gives the largest number of voters the opportunity to let you know which of the two ways they would prefer us to deal with this, instead of us trying to decide. At the deliberative session, we all know we're lucky if we get 100. And so I was the one, in any way did I mean to offend the Budget Committee. I was just trying to find a solution and a way for us to get an opinion of the largest number of people in town.
So do you want us to just zero this out and you go for the whole ball of wax?
I was just trying to go for the increase. I can go back to the, board. I can't make a decision for the full board.
We all want fire protection for the town, Linda. I dropped off some stuff off that I got from over in Maine. I try to find people that are neutral, that don't get paid by the town to do certain things. And there was a formula in that packet that showed how to figure this all out by the number of people and the number of hookups and all this other stuff. You know, it may be, by using this formula, we may have to pay 30%. I don't know. I can't tell people. If someone says, why is it 20%? I don't know. What am I going to tell them? This is what the selectmen feel is a fair amount to keep the water rates down? Because as I said before, there's people that may say, that are water users say it should be 30. There's people that don't have their wells and say, why should I pay anything? So we tried to divide it and make it into 17.5%. That was a way of kind of resolving everything.
Right, but we had been on a system, and I went back, we started in 2011. We went to 300,000. We did that for 2 years, and that's what we presented to you. Then for the next 2 years, we did 325. And the next 2 years, we did 340, and they were base, and I only could go back and find my 2014 water survey, but it was in there also. And the reason I went back to the American Water Works Association is that is the association that came up with the calculation that Underwood Association used. And based on the size of our system, we should be charging 24 to 33% for hydrant fees. We kind of came up with 20 as it seemed reasonable to the Board of Selectmen. So it is based on a calculation on a association that's been there since 1881. It's not something new. And I was going on there and I looked at all sorts of stuff today to try to see if there was a chart, which is what I was looking for you. I was not able to find it. I've asked Dave Ford to go back to Underwood and see if they can produce a chart for me.
We have presented those charts before, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that we incurred the cost of bringing the engineers here to do the PowerPoint presentation. They presented the formula and the charts and everything, and explained the rationale behind it. So in any cost accounting system, I'm remembering back to my cost accounting class in business school. That was a long time ago. Somebody has to set the allocations. In this setting, we have the governing body of the town, the Board of Selectmen. They set the allocation at 20%. We've been going under that allocation formula ever since I've been here for 11 years. And for some reason, this body has decided that you don't like that allocation, and you voted at one point to set a different allocation of 17.5%. That's what this budget is based on, because that was the vote that was in effect at the point that we were doing this budget. So if it's going to be something else, we need to know so that we can change the budget. But I think the appropriate body, the governing body of the town, has made the determination that it should be at 20%, and that's the way we have been operating. Now, I did, at the request of the selectmen, prepare a warrant article, but I've been told to hold this in abeyance to see if we're going to have some kind of resolution here to this. I think what the selectmen and I would like to see is some kind of agreement to maybe move this thing back up towards the 20%, maybe not all at once, maybe over 2 or 3 years, but at least that we get going back on the right track, or at least what we view as the right track.
By going up the rates, though, you're going to increase the revenues into the water system, correct?
Yes, and that way we don't have to.
Based on the revenues that are taken in by the water system. So that's going to go up anyhow. That figure's going to go up. You're going to get your extra money because the rates are going to go up.
We've only raised the rates 2% at this point to fill the hole that was created when you made the reduction to the hydrant fees, we would need to raise it another 2.5%. It needed to be raised 4.5%, not 2%, to fill the gap. So we still have a hole, and that's what this warrant article seeks to do, if it went forward, is to fill that gap by raising an additional $31,000.
As a two-step, it would be 31,000 warrant article this year and 31,000 for the next. And I was reading through here, we have 245 fire hydrants. And as I divided it out, it's $1,500 per hydrant. We have to have a larger storage tank, larger pipes. We have to provide different pressure in order to have that fire hydrant capable of putting out a fire. Mr. Owen is correct. We sat down and looked at it. We looked at the impact of doing a 4.5% increase, as Kathy Eaton said, on those businesses. We raised the two and was hoping that we could come to some resolution with the Budget Committee so we don't have to raise it another 2.5, so that if we don't get something here, we're going to have to raise it by 4.5 next year. And that's a big impact.
So you see no wiggle room as far as us making an agreement where it goes 17.5 this year, goes to 18 next year, goes to 18.5 the next year? You see no wiggle room. It's either all or nothing.
No, I think we were willing to do it in two steps, and I think we had done that two-step bit. We went from 300,000 up to 345, 2 years step gradually. That's what we have done over the last 6 years, and more than willing to increase it by 31,000 this year and wait for another 31,000 the following year to get it up to the 362,000 required based on these studies. And that's where we're getting it from, and they're the experts.
John,
Yes, sir.
I got a few items here.
Okay.
Number one, it's a very hot subject. But I'd like to point out that this study saying 20% may not apply to Wolfeboro. What's the percentage of population that is covered by the water system and what is not? Is that part of the study? If it's not, I suspect the study is mostly aimed at communities that don't have a hinterland. Now, they may have said that we put it for Wolfeboro. I question it. So the 20% is a number, might be right for Wolfeboro, might not be right. Now, one more thing I'd like to say. I think it's a terribly arrogant position of the selectmen to have this threat of a warrant article in the back. That's arrogant, and I don't like that at all. Okay, but my big point is this 20% number from the studies, and we've had a lot of them. I'm a mathematician, and I can't understand the damn study. And I don't think very many people can. That's all I have to say, John.
Thank you, John. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay.
A year ago, we talked about this very thing, and I did a cursory look-see at the hydrant fees as they applied to the lost water in this town, which was at that point 49 million gallons a year. And that came out to be something like 23% of what the output of the water plant and what was billed.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere that water's going someplace.
Mm-hmm.
It's not getting to the users.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the water distribution, the water treatment plant, and just those two, those are the only two budgets that I looked at. The hydrant fees came up to match within 10% of the lost water. Now, what I am saying here, and I don't know whether it's a coincidence, I don't know whether it walks like a duck and looks like a duck, but it seems to me that what we're doing with the hydrant fees is subsidizing the fact that we've got a bad water system.
We've been working on that. When I came onto the Board of Selectmen, it was 50%. That was part of the 2006 administrative order on the town. We have worked on it. We have a lot of very old pipes. That's where the leakage is coming. We've brought it down significantly. Do we still need to bring it down? Yes. My understanding is 15% water loss is industry standard, and we're still high. You know, every time we change a pipe, we find a leak, we're working on bringing that down. And I agree with you, we need to keep working on our water loss. But I feel we've replaced major pipes that are leaking, and that's where it comes from. We replace meters, so it's not, it's not in our metering system. So we've been working at trying to find that.
Okay, I understand that. What is, David, you may have this, I don't know, maybe Dave does. What is the current water loss percentage?
I think it's a little above 20%, maybe 22, 23%.
All right.
It's still high, but it's not nearly as high as it was
No, I know, I
when
understand.
Dave Ford and I got here. It was about 50%.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
So the selectmen can't live with $340,000 for this year, I take it?
I'm sorry, what?
$340,000 is that what you got last year? 345?
No, we got 300 last year.
300 last year.
That was the year you cut it. And we went back
Okay,
to
I'm
did a
sorry.
water system. We did the study again on prices and did not come to the Budget Committee and try to negotiate or to make a change at the deliberative session. We thought that if we went back and did a study and we had more communication, that we could come to some kind of a resolution. If we went to 18% of the 1.8 million plus operating and maintenance, that would be 326,000. If we went to 18.5, it would be 335,700 and change.
And the 20% would be 363,791.
Yeah, yeah. You know, coming part way, I think I can take that back to the selectmen, and that would make sense as we work to get our way back up there, as we have done in the past. You know, we did it for 6 years. You bought on to the system where we were going, and all of a sudden, it went. And, you know, I think that took us as the selectmen by surprise. And that's why we did another, you know, study and did some more documentation on this, and trying to, I'm here to see if we can get some kind of resolution.
You remember this, when this was 50,000, Linda?
Pardon me?
You remember when this was 50,000, when you guys first started, or the selectmen before you first started, it was $50,000 a year?
Well, it's worked its way up. I think when I came on in 2005, it was 250.
Yeah, I know, but you were on the budget committee before that, though, right?
No, no.
Oh, you must have been the selectmen's
I
representative on the
was,
budget. Okay,
yes, when I came, yes, and that was 250 at that point. And then we went to 300 and go through the rates that we went, but we went gradually. You know, as we worked at, you know, also when I came on to the Board of Selectmen, they were looking at building a new plant out.
Yeah.
We've worked at being able to manage the storage pond. We've done exactly in terms of the water loss. We've gotten rid of about 25% of the water loss, maybe not, about 22% of the water loss. We've been working our way down. We've done projects that are being paid for all by user fees to deal with the water leakage and upgrading of the pipes, getting rid of red water. We still have some areas. We know we're going to have one pipe that we're going to have to go up North Main Street, and I think that's one of our oldest pipes, maybe around 1900. Dave, do you remember the age of that one pipe going up North Main?
1890.
So we've got still some old, we're working our way. We've got to balance the debt service and the fees and what the consumer can pay. We have been working at a capital reserve account. We did an asset management plan. We got government funds to do that. And we have $121 million assets in our water system. And we need to find a way to put money off to replace that. The Board of Selectmen and the staff is working very hard to get asset management plans so we don't end up where we were when I came in on the board in 2005 with the water moratorium, followed by a sewer moratorium, followed by the ADA issues, and we're doing planning. We're trying to get out of everything being an emergency and having to function in that manner. So we've been working on it.
John,
Yes, sir.
the number that the selectmen put on the line was my idea, and I still like it.
The number,
At 318, that's 17.5%, was my idea. I still think it's a compromise, and I still like it.
I
give
can,
us a second to digest this, Linda.
It's okay. That's all right. If we went to 18%, it would be 326, and 18.5 is 335, and change down below, 300.
So which one of those numbers can you live with? 326? Let me guess, 335.
That would be my first choice, but anything higher than where we are right now would be better. Yes, I would like the 18.5. It gets us there, but I can take whatever you're willing and go back to the Board of Selectmen. I'm only one of 5. I can't make a
Right.
decision for them. I'm just here to try to give you, I took some time today to really kind of take a look at this and run it through my own head. I went out online to the website, the American Water Works, to try to get a sense of what that organization was. And it had all sorts of courses and on how you calculate prices, and it's a real resource for water systems, and obviously it's been used for a long time. So this isn't something we plucked out of the sky. He used, the Underwood engineers used, and reason I didn't read this right before, because it doesn't make, I don't know all the answers here. The American Water Works Association, MOP M1, and that's why they calculated the amount that should be for fire protection, and that, as my understanding, has to do with the size. And at that, it would have been between 24 and 33%. We felt 20% was what the Board of Selectmen felt was we could live with. I have no idea what MOP M1, nor could I find that. I'm sure there is that information.
I have a question.
Yes,
So,
Steve.
basically what the selectmen and the town manager is saying, that there's a nut that you're trying to get to that pays for the water distribution service. So what you're trying to do is increase this so that what you charge individual rates on the water bill will be less. Am I understanding that correctly?
So we don't have to raise rates again.
Okay. So basically, if you take this 300,000 or whatever it is, and pair that with your other funds for the water, that's the nut that you're trying to get to, right?
That's the
Am I
amount of money
understanding that correctly?
we need in order for the system to run in the black, yes. And the fire hydrant is what, with all the cost to run the system, is the percentage that the American Water Works Association attributes to having fire hydrants.
I
If we
understand.
didn't have that,
I understand that part of it. So basically, it's just trying to get to a figure that keeps the water system in the black. And so rather than having your water rates go up, you're trying to get it here. It's still coming out of the tax rate slightly. It's just that this way is a little bit more palatable than having the water rates, correct?
It's offsetting, this money is used to offset the water rate.
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. That's what it is. I'd like to make a motion to increase this line to 326,000, and just like a second for discussion, if we could.
I'll second.
What was that, John?
I did a motion to increase this to 326,000.
326, thank you.
That would put it at the 18%.
Yeah, it would be 326,694.96 at eight, if we do the 18% on the 1.8 million that,
What was it again, Linda?
it was $326,694.96.
I have another question. On the presentation that Underwood made, did the town act upon any of those suggestions? Are we going forward with any of those things as far as like, are we paying our debt service off first, or are we incurring more debt by paying for things and not paying that off?
If you watch the Warren articles, because of the
So
way
it's in the
we've set our fees, we're able to pay for in cash the smaller repairs. There's going to be a Warren article to replace the water line on Pine Street, and that's going to be done out of cash, out of this fund. We're trying not to borrow. We're trying to set that in the rate.
I want to get to that point where we don't incur extra expense by having to fund it with a bond or whatever we'd have to do with it. That's what I'm trying to get to.
And that's what this fund is set up to, until you get, I imagine when we do the big water line up North Main Street, it'll be so large that at that time we might have to bond. But our goal, all the projects that you have seen in the last couple of years have been cash out of this fund with no bonding.
Because what I have a problem with is there's so many different select parts to this, to budgeting in general, is that the taxpayers don't get a bottom line understanding. They look at a warrant article and say, yes, they like that, but they don't realize that that 300,000, whatever it is in that warrant article, I don't know what it is going to go to their tax bill. So I'm just, it's frustrating for me when we do this, and then we find out, like in last year's budget, we had practically a zero, but then we added 6% because of the warrant articles. And we never get to a point where we see, that's what I'm trying to get those pieces together, that's all.
It's never going to be to that point. It's never going to be self-sufficient, the water system. It's always going
No, it could be if we just yank the rates.
Right,
Yeah.
I know, but it's
Yeah.
basically, it's never going to go any bigger than it is now.
And they would then pay for the community benefit of fire protection.
Oh, no, I understand. It's not just that, Lynn. I'm willing to support, clean water for the users and all this other stuff, but, and I don't want to get off track and stuff, but I made the motion for 326, 694.96. I think after hearing Linda, I can support that a little bit better. Again, what I am disappointed is about the Warren article, that I thought we had an agreement at 17.5% when we worked that all out, and then I kind of got offended by that Warren article, the thought of a Warren article. And my first gut instinct is, if this isn't acceptable, then we'll probably just ought to go for broke and zero this out. If there's a Warren article where this isn't acceptable, this is just me speaking, I don't know about you gentlemen. If a Warren article shows up to make this difference after we voted to approve this, I believe we have a public hearing before the Warren articles are finished, where this can be taken out. We'll just zero the whole thing out.
My guess is that we're moving towards that other goal. We're fine. We didn't go to the deliberative session last year when you dropped it down to 300,000 and asked for the 45.
Right.
We took another step in doing that. And I'll take the responsibility for the Board of Selectmen. I thought it would be less offensive for us to ask the taxpayer and the voter to decide which way they wanted to do it. That was my intent. It wasn't in any way to offend you or anything else.
I always thought that, I think we do have a good relationship, the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee, and I think it's good that we get together and talk about these things, rather than, doing something this way and not going over it. And I hope that we'll always have that open relationship with your group and stuff. which would be
I
good.
think it's very important that we do.
Okay, great,
And
thank
that's
you.
why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Any other,
Yes,
Yes, sir.
You know, you had done a lot of research and brought some material forward that hasn't been looked at completely as far as,
I guess it never filtered over to you folks, the stuff that I'd found?
I haven't seen it
Okay,
personally.
I'll get that to you tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
It was
thank
just
you.
something that I found, it was done by the state of Maine, a couple of folks that have been in the business for years, and they used that particular formula that you're talking about, but they have a mathematical formula where you can base it on, I didn't major in calculus, whatever it is, and someone's got to know some math, has to figure it out. And again, it may be advantageous to you as saying, maybe it should be more than 18%. And if that's what it says, then I can live with that, you know? I sense that it's probably going to be, probably somewhere in the middle there, but let me get that to you, Linda. Does that answer your question?
yeah, I mean, that's been the whole basis of this argument all along, is that there's no real established foundation as to how they arrived at that 20% figure. And I think, and this has been an argument for several years now, I think it's time to resolve it, so this doesn't become an issue every year.
And I'll take what you have, and I have tried to get some more information out of Dave Ford after I couldn't find it on the website. I spent a lot of time trying to pluck this off the website today, and I couldn't. We'll take a look at it. I think that's legitimate for us to go back to Underwood Engineers with what you have and see where the difference is, or if there is a difference, there may not be.
Yeah, but it's worth, if you can just take a look at it, that'd be great. Any other comments and discussions, anything? John?
I'm just interested, what percentage of the population in Wolfeboro is on the water system, and be interesting to know.
About 2,000 people
2,000? So it's
out
about
of
one-third.
5,000. Pardon?
One-third of the,
About 2,000 households out of 5,000.
households.
Yeah,
So that's about 4,500, say.
yeah. But the,
So that's
but the high,
75%.
the water mains have been sized, and the hydrants the whole system has
I
been
understand
sized
completely.
to provide fire flows in the commercial business district. And this is protecting the vital part of your tax base here.
Well, the size of the water tower, the water mains going to South Wolfboro, they're all based upon fire flow requirements, okay? We've discussed that before, we all know that, I thought.
Okay,
But it interests me, the number of people that are serviced by the water of the population of Wolfboro, which is about 6,000.
yep, about 2,000 households.
Does the household include, Huggins Hospital, the school, the businesses?
That includes all of our big
They're
institutions.
measured in that, okay.
And a lot of our wooden buildings in the downtown.
So essentially, by changing this figure, we're just going to go up approximately $8,500 roughly.
To 18%.
Chief, since this is your budget, do you have anything you want to say about it?
He likes his job. No.
This was before me. It's a very interesting dialogue.
Yeah, if this should pass, Chief, we're going to have to find another $9,000 to take out of your budget, so. Okay, any more discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to increase line 380 outside services hydrant to $326,694.96. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Selectman Murray. Do you have anything else you want to chat with us about?
I'll let you finish with him, and then I brought information you asked me for about the town manager search and salary.
Oh, okay.
And I'll give the original copy of the letter to Eileen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we all set on 300 services? 300, yeah. Okay, 400? You still got guys with pages? You still have people with pages? Wow. I'm sorry, Steve, you have?
I was just gonna say, what's that new texting alert system? What's that?
Yeah, so this is a software program that we have implemented with our staff. And what it does in conjunction with the pagers, it sends text alerts regarding emergencies. It also works as a way of communicating, but it integrates with Google Maps. So what it does for us is if we're out conducting a search, if we're out dealing with a brush fire, it gives us the ability to see what's going on. And dispatch has a console in their dispatch center that they can see where people are located. It also gives us the ability to see who is responding back to the station for an emergency. So if we are dispatched to a fire and all of a sudden, for some reason, we've got 6 people who click on their phones that they're not available, it allows us to start additional resources that much quicker. And it also provides mapping. When dispatch enters the address into the system, the crews receive the text message, and it gives turn-by-turn map directions on Google Map to their phone from where they're at.
John?
Yes, sir.
On 433, it seems the last couple of years you didn't spend close to the 8,000 that you have, or 8,500, I should say. I know you have a list of things.
Yeah, and some of these items are taking place right now. For example, the purchase orders for the ground ladder testing, those ground and aerial ladder, those are taking place right now. That's been scheduled. SCBA testing, that has been scheduled. Gear washer and dryer, that got serviced last week. Part of the advantage is we've got decent equipment, and the guys take a lot of pride in the equipment, and they maintain it very well. So we've been able to stay under because they're taking good care of the equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 500. The Ospey Valley Fire Mutual Aid, does everyone pay the same amount of money?
Good question. For a number of years, that was budgeted at $4,500. Last year, it was budgeted at $4,500, but the actual cost was $5,000. This year, the Board of Directors made the decision to increase that from $5,000 to $6,000. We anticipate it staying that same level going forward. Just to put it into context a little bit, if we were to join Lakes Region, we'd probably be looking over $100,000 for mutual aid dues. And I can tell you my former department, they're spending $12,000 to belong to a mutual aid association. So it is an increase, but it does keep us up to being able to call in a hazardous materials team from the mutual aid system. It also gives us the ability to use them as a backup dispatch center if we have a problem in the public safety building.
Does everyone in Carroll County pretty much belong to that?
Excuse me?
Does everyone in Carroll County belong to that, or?
For the bulk, other than Molten Borough and Sandwich, other than that, I believe.
What are they with, Lakes Region?
They're in Lakes Region, yeah.
And just again, is that 6,000, does Ospey pay that, Tamworth, everyone pays the same amount?
Yeah, the full members of the mutual aid association pay that $6,000. There are a couple associate members. I believe it's a couple of the Conways. They pay an associate dues of, I believe, $2,000.
Okay. Okay, 600. What's the 5-year average charge on maintenance supplies? Do you have that?
What's that?
The 5-year average on 630 maintenance supplies?
30.
Maintenance supplies. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, $3,094.
Okay, thank you.
This is one of those areas that can get a little touchy as well. If we end up using a significant amount of oxygen, this is where that comes from. We've been fortunate. We've got a very good ambulance service that takes care of us, and we don't utilize a lot of oxygen. But oxygen is pricey, and if we have major events where we utilize a lot of oxygen, it is pricey.
So this is sort of a what if?
It really is. It's a contingent.
How many more of those do you have, Chief?
There really isn't a lot.
No.
Who determines when the ambulance goes and when the fire rescue goes? And I asked that question specifically. There was a man, elderly man, who fell in the Harvest Market parking lot, and the ambulance was there and attending, and then a fire apparatus truck showed up too. I'm just curious what the protocol is for something like that. So someone comes in, someone calls, I'm not sure where they call into, gentleman falls, and what's the protocol on that?
Yeah. So what occurs is the duty crew, which is the full-time staff at the firehouse, in conjunction with the crew at Stewart's, respond to that incident simultaneously. Correct. On the days where there's 3 people on duty, 2 lieutenants and a firefighter, one of those firefighters will stay back so we can staff for additional calls between myself and the deputy. This practice works well because of a lot of reasons. One, we tend to run into a lot of patients that moving them with just 2 people is not safe. And we've run into problems where back injuries, etc. Secondly, the dispatch information a lot of times is not terribly accurate. People are having a bad day, they're calling 911, and they may not be very clear with what is going on. So traditionally what will happen is the ambulance will begin their response, the engine will start that way with traffic, and if it's upgraded that there's a greater problem, they go lights and sirens. If there's no need for them, then they get cleared. But that's fairly standard protocol across the industry.
Thanks.
That's the way I've seen it operate in most communities that I've worked in, is the ambulance and the fire crew.
Yeah. From a
Well, at the
private
same
perspective,
time.
it just seems like overkill to me.
Well,
And I appreciate the attendance, and I appreciate.
Well, when you're trying to get a 350-pounder down a flight of stairs on a stretcher, you need more than two people.
Your side.
Really happens. I had a firefighter injured exactly doing that, trying to get a 350-pounder down from a 3rd-story illegal apartment.
How long ago was
That was, 15.
Chief, on 680, you only spent $11,642.78.
I'm sorry, which line?
680.
Safety equipment, yeah. So this is being coming to this time of year, we've actually issued purchase orders for our annual uniform purchase. So that has occurred. We are in the process of purchasing 3 ice rescue suits. Our ice rescue suits are in excess of 20 years old, and those are in excess of $700 a piece. And then we've got some rope gear that we will be replacing as well. So this line is we've held it in reserve, and the main reason we hold it in reserve until this time of year is if we have somebody's turnout gear become contaminated with oils or other items, and this is the right time to buy ice rescue suits as opposed to in July.
You've got on 740, you've got the flare imager. Didn't you get one of those last year? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
this will be the last handheld thermal imaging camera that we'll purchase, probably for an extended period of time. That will outfit each apparatus with the camera. One thing that I would anticipate going forward next year is we replace the radar unit in the boat and the display in the boat under last year's budget. I would anticipate next year that we will be looking at putting a mounted thermal imaging camera on the boat.
I have one of those on my boat.
Yeah,
Pretty neat.
they're a pretty amazing piece of
So do you think
equipment.
you can have enough money left in your safety equipment from either this year or next year that we could put the thermal imaging camera into the safety equipment?
This year, no, because of the purchase orders that are being processed right now. Again, next year, potentially, if we don't have anybody involved in a motor vehicle crash where they get their gear contaminated, that type of thing. Turnout gear is in excess of $2,500 a set. So,
Okay, let's move on from the 700 series. $800. You guys gone to the fire academy? Is that where you get all your certifications and stuff?
yeah, we do a lot of wide array of training between going to the fire academy. We've also been sending people to Primex, our property liability company, for additional professional development as far as, multi-generational workforces, supervisors academies, that type of thing. But yeah, we utilize the New Hampshire Fire Academy very heavily.
We spent about, $4,300 as of October 2nd. Have you used all that money up? Do you have any?
That line at this point, I know that we just expended or had a PO issued for our continuing education for the EMS provider that comes in.
Okay.
And that's for $2,000. And I think there were still a few outstanding purchase orders as well from Fire Prevention Week, which is in October. That line is pretty tight at this point.
Okay.
I have a question, John, on
Yes, sir.
line 850. Miscellaneous operating expenses. What's this?
That's a real good question. I believe this is a line where we had purchased, the administrative assistant needed a new chair.
Beg your pardon?
The administrative assistant needed a new chair, so we purchased her a new chair out of this line, I believe. We've also utilized it in the past to purchase some hazardous materials supplies.
Those are not covered by any other line in your budget? The furniture should be covered in here somewheres, and the others be operating materials.
Well, I guess I can't fully answer that without doing a little bit more research, but I can do a little bit more research for you and give you an
Would
answer.
appreciate it,
Okay.
because to me, this is just another spot for a slush fund. And I abhorred those.
I can understand and I can appreciate that, and I'm glad if it's considered that. It's not a very large line item.
Well, a good explanation will help.
I will look into that tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for the chief? Thank you, chief. Appreciate you coming in. Do you have any questions of us, or do you have anything in the general fund?
I believe we've got 2 capital outlay requests.
Fire hose and something else.
So we put together 2 requests this year for capital items. Do you have any preference as to which one we cover first?
What's the first one, the fire hose, or decommissioned fire alarms? Okay.
So November of 2016, we came in front of the select board requesting permission to look into decommissioning the municipal fire alarm system. It's pricey to maintain. It's at a point where it needs to have a lot of money invested into it. And I just can't sit here and substantiate those costs in conjunction with competing with private businesses. As a result of coming in front of the Board of Selectmen, they approved the decommissioning of the system. Deputy Chief Tom Zotti has been working diligently on this project, and we're coming and asking you for the sum of $22,500 to remove all of the cables off of the utility poles. If everything goes as we're anticipating, this would occur in April to May, when mud season is over, but before traffic gets real busy.
You're going to stay off of Center Street when they do the construction, or you're going to be there doing it?
Actually, the way that the project is gone, we've already got the Center Street circuit turned off. So when they relocate those poles, they're cutting that wire as they're going. However, we'll have to go beyond where they move the poles, out Center Street and out Elm Street, up to Pine Hill to Sugar Hill.
You know, a lot of times on house insurance, it's based on how far you are from the fire department, if there's fire hydrants close. Would this have any effect on anyone's house
No,
fire insurance or anything?
it really doesn't. It actually puts us as a greater liability because, for example, if we had a line come down going out Pine Hill Road, at that point Sugar Hill would have no coverage. So we would technically have to provide somebody to stand there as a fire watch.
Okay.
So no, there is no benefit as far as for homeowners insurance. And if you talk with a lot of the installers of fire alarm systems today, they're going to wireless modems rather than using over land wire at all.
So when you go into schools and nursing homes and stuff, the whole thing, that's being sent some other way to the fire department?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It'll go through a third-party vendor, and then they will call central dispatch. The other advantage that gives to us, again, if we have a problem at the public safety building, with this system, it doesn't go anywhere else. It only goes to the public safety building. With the newer systems, if they call the public safety building and there's no answer, it gets forwarded automatically to Carol. Okay. And Carol has the ability to tone us. I would also like to mention that the first draft we did of this, we were looking at $50,000, but we were able to talk with another vendor based on the recommendation from Barry at Municipal Electric, and this is what they provided for a quote. Early in 2018, if this is approved, we will be putting out an RFP.
Are they taking the boxes with them? Is that part of the deal, or?
At this point, the town is going to be maintaining ownership of the boxes, and we are working on a plan to disseminate those boxes. That is still really in limbo at this point.
Okay,
There's quite a lot of value in those.
yeah.
I can tell you the company that we originally dealt with to get the quote, they are a fire alarm company. They take care of San Francisco, a lot of these bigger cities, and they would be purchasing these at about $100 to $150 a piece. The problem with the boxes in this part of the world is the salt does a terrible job on them, and you can drive by and look at all of them, and it's sad because they're in tough shape.
Yeah. Any other questions on the, okay, let's go to fire hose replacement.
So one of the things that I initiated last year when I came here was to do a more consistent job at testing hose. Hose had been tested previously, but it was sporadic. So we initiated hose testing. Through our budget process, were able to replace a significant amount of our smaller diameter hose. Over the past 2 years, we've replaced 2,000 feet of that. However, the 5-inch hose is much more expensive. This year, during our testing, we failed 800 feet. All this hose is mid-90s vintage, so it's lived its life. My goal going forward would be to request to purchase 1,500 feet of hose this year, purchase 1,500 feet of hose next year, and then treat it as a maintenance item and try to buy 2 links a year through our budget process. This also would incorporate a hose tester. The hose tester, which we currently have, is, as near as we can tell, very early 90s. It predates a lot of our employees, and we ran into a lot of problems with it this year as far as corrosion. The pump is failing. It's not building pressure adequately, and it takes a significant amount of time to build to the pressure, which reduces the amount of, or increases the amount of time it takes to turn around this hose testing.
Any other questions on the hose? Anything else, Chief?
I would like to answer any questions that you guys may have for us. Other than that, I thank you for your time tonight and your commitment to this process. It's got to get daunting after a couple of weeks, I'm sure.
Thank you for coming in, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you
job.
very much. Have a great holiday.
You too, sir.
Does a good job.
Let's ask Selectman Murray to come back up. She's got something for us.
While you're discussing this.
Did you want to do it, Linda? Did you want David to contribute anything? No? Okay.
Are you ready for me, John?
What's that, ma'am?
Are you ready for me?
I certainly am.
Okay. What I've brought is some information, so maybe you could better understand the characteristics that we're looking for in our town manager. I brought the ideal candidate's profile. I didn't bring the challenge statements because we're still working on those. I've got 6 copies, so you'll have to look at it each. Each of you will have to look on with somebody else. But it'll give you an idea of the quality we're looking for, and I'll let you read it. I don't need to read it out to you, but I thought it would give you a better understanding of the qualifications that we're looking for.
question for you, Linda.
Sure.
The second one, 7 to 10 years of progressive municipal management experience. Does that mean another town manager from another town? Is that what that?
Yeah, we're
Same.
looking for somebody, yes, who has been a town manager in another town.
Okay.
These will be the credentials that MRI will use, and then the challenge statements to sort the candidates before we get the 6 finalists.
You want this?
How come you don't have the general catchphrase or combination of education and experience?
What? You want? Oh, yeah, I use the paper on the backside.
What were you asking me?
Why you don't have a combination of education or experience? You may have someone that's been the, manager of a fairly good community for so many years, and, geez, I don't have a master's degree, but I've been a town manager for 15 years in Vermont, very similar community. So I couldn't apply for this job because I don't have a master's degree.
This is from talking with people. We were looking for somebody with a master's degree, had some education in the field.
What does a master's degree offer you that a college education and experience doesn't offer you?
Well, I think it has more knowledge of management, which is what I think we really need here. Somebody who has a good understanding of public management and administration. And I'll kind of maybe pass this over to Dave. What would you figure we gained by a master's over a BA?
The typical entry degree into the field is a master's in public administration, but there's other people come from other fields as well into public administration, sometimes from lawyers, sometimes engineers, but they all have a pretty high level of education required.
How hard do you think it's going to be to find them with those qualifications, and what are we looking at for cost?
When we advertised last time, we had 44 applicants, and I'll give you the next piece on here. After I got the request, or after I saw the prices that John had handed out, I wrote to MRI and saying, okay, give me some more information on how to justify the salary range, because that's where I got the salary range from, was talking to MRI. What was the range should we be looking at? And you'll see the paragraph there that one of the things that they're concerned about at this point in time is a lot of the town managers are of the age of retiring. And so the pool of town managers is greatly decreased. They would be surprised if we could find anybody, any number near the 44. They thought we might get around 20. And so I think what we're looking at, and then I went back and, John, thank you for this chart. I looked at Meredith, which is, I think, a pretty comparable town. They're paying their town manager $112,560. If you put a 2% raise on that, that brings them up to about $115,000. Well, we need something to attract this person to move on to another town. And that's where we kind of came up to the 120. So I think what we're looking for is, I think this town needs a more experienced town manager. We have a lot of staff and enterprise funds and working pieces.
Is this the same criteria that got us Dave Owen?
No. This we created 2 years ago. I can easily say it's not. It's the same process, but not the same criteria. I didn't just take it from what we used then.
Not implying anything at all.
I got it, Brian.
What about, I always feel that someone that's in this type of responsible job, whether it's a town manager or some other department head, they should be living in Wolfeboro. Is there going to be a requirement that this person move to Wolfboro?
I have not, it is not at this time, but I will take that recommendation back to the board.
I think they have more stake in it if they're in the community as far as they're joining everyone else when they pay the taxes.
Okay, I will,
How you guys?
It's usually not a job requirement, and it might limit your pool of applicants a little bit. The communities where it is usually an applicant are more like inner core communities that are having a hard time hanging on to residents. So you'll find some of the inner core communities around Boston have residency requirements. But, you know, in the outer communities, particularly, I worked in the Boston suburbs for a couple decades, and a lot of the employees couldn't afford to live in the communities that they were working for. They had to come from elsewhere. So residency requirements didn't make any sense there.
It's my understanding that to work for the city of Boston or the school district or in departments, you have to live in Boston.
They have a lot of
Or you have to have an address in Boston.
yeah, they
Mailbox, but
they have a lot of waivers and ways around that, I gather. But
I think all of our town managers have lived in Wolfboro.
yeah,
Yeah.
this was actually the first time that I've actually lived in the community that I worked for, and it was a pretty good experience.
So here, I brought the ad, and I've made some changes to it that will go to the board of selectmen, just to give you an idea of how we are going to advertise, and this is where we need to put the salary range in. Just because we put that salary range in, we do not have to pay them that amount. What MRI is telling us, if you have a higher salary range, you'll attract more applicants. And that was what his response was to me and that's what he's been saying. Alan Gould has been saying to me every time I've talked to him about us, as the board itself has struggled. We've moved many times on, first we were thinking 110, and then we didn't think that would attract what we needed, so then we went to 115. I went back and talked to him. He felt 120 would be a good range for us.
Could you do a range between, say, 110 and 130, and then you've got a range, then you've got a high range and a low range, you're not necessarily zeroing in on 120 or whatever the figure is?
You'll see right there, it's from 90 to 120 would
Okay.
be what we would do it as,
Thanks.
yes. And that would be based on experience and criteria, and, you know, if we got somebody with less experience, we would pay them less. But I thought that would give you some kind of idea of how we were going to try to advertise, what we were looking for. I would like the board to go over the challenge statements again before, but I can also, after we've done that, give those to you.
So a proven record of positive financial management, would that be keeping the budget within a reasonable parameter of percentage increase?
I would think it would be to have a good understanding of financial management, and yes, I would like to know what kind of increases there had been, but it's, you know, something could happen in the town and,
Of course.
you know,
I appreciate that.
but we want them to have financial management skills. That's a very important part of this. They're going to oversee a finance director, customer service, that's important. We want them have a good public ethic. I think one of the things that Dave Owen has given us is somebody who, you can go into his office, you can call him, he returns calls. The public has like that kind of a response, and that's what we're looking for again.
When you narrow it down to, say, a couple of people, what kind of background is done with them? Does Mr. Gould call up the previous employer and ask them questions about their job performance and things like that, or?
He was going to they would first look at the resumes, then he will do a phone interview with them, then he will check preliminary references, then we'll get the 6 semi-finalists. When we come down to the finalists, he will do a thorough check of it. And they're going to do that for us. Background checks. They aren't going to do a full-fledged check if it's not one that we're going to.
Just throw the name into Google.
No, they're not going to just Google it.
Okay.
And they're going to do, they will do, we're going to have essay questions so that we're going to get a picture of their written skills. And then they'll have a interview with the MRI employee, and they'll get an idea of their verbal skills. Can they communicate verbally and through writing?
Okay. Any other questions for Linda?
Are you okay with 120,000? That's why we're.
Well, that's too much for us to digest.
Okay, all right. That's what we're going to need to do. We're going to need to, that ad, I think we're looking at going out in beginning of February. We're going to have to finish it up, so we are going to need to.
I shouldn't have spoken for everybody. You guys want to deal with it now, or do you want to wait for a couple of meetings? Or?
I don't see any reason why not. We should, put the number on the line.
Why don't you put the, so you're looking for a high-end approval?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be the number that would go in the budget. We would negotiate from the 90 to 120, and we would base it on the education, their, where they're coming from, what their requests are. We look at it.
Can we take out that 15,000?
Can we take out the 15?
The 15,000 that goes to the, help me out there with the retirement account?
You're talking about when you negotiate with the,
Is it going to be 120 plus the, can we take that 15,000 out that's in there? It goes to the retirement account, the town manager's retirement account, or?
well, it depends. If you hire somebody that's been working in New Hampshire and is already a member of the New Hampshire retirement system, they'll probably want to continue on with the retirement system. If you hire somebody from outside, like I came from Massachusetts, and I wasn't part of the New Hampshire retirement system, I opted not to participate in the state retirement system, and the town just agreed to give me an amount equal to what they would be contributing to the New Hampshire state retirement system, and put that into a deferred compensation program for me. So that would be part of the negotiations with whoever is selected.
So is the 120, is that a gross, or is that a net? And you add to that retirement, you add this.
Yeah, as you do with all employees.
I know.
Yeah.
See, the thing that, what I have a difficult time with, coming from the private sector, the 120 is everything, and you take out of that. This 120, they're actually ending up with probably more like 150, 160, 165.
Absolutely, the benefit package, yes. I don't have all the
As
calculations.
a private sector person, that seems to me, I can't wrap my arms around that. I have a real tough time with that. And what happens is the more the public sector gets guys like me in the private sector, it's like sucking the life out of us. And this is a personal thing, I don't mean to get dopey about it, but it really, when you say 120, that's a net, so that's his take-home pay. He doesn't have to worry about, I'll stop.
No, you're right.
okay, Steve.
Every one of these employees, and we've talked about that before, the difference in their salary and then their salary with their benefit package. And their benefit package is really their whole compensation, and you're absolutely right. And this is no different than your firefighter, your public works director, anything else. It's not like I can say, oh, well, we're not gonna do this for this guy, this person.
Well,
It's public.
I get it. And which gets me back to this thing here, and I don't mean to belabor it, but a history of successful collective bargaining experience. I'd like to see part of that is where he's driving price costs down, and I don't know that you'll ever get something like that. It just seems to me that we get bigger and bigger and bigger in the public sector, and the private sector that's funding the public sector gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And somewhere there's got to be a balancing between the two. And like we were talking about last night, as far as like what the increases in the police department budget, and it's crazy. And again, I don't.
And that's why we did away with.
First and foremost, I appreciate your time and energy with this, and I appreciate the hard job of being a selectman. So.
Yeah, and we do wage studies in comparison to other communities, and, you know, we gave a 2.5% raise. I mean, I think we are trying to be responsible exactly for what you're talking about. We know it, and it's coming out of our pockets too. We understand.
We're all in it together.
Yeah. So does anybody have any more question about this? Want any other information?
One quick one. Do you have a rough idea what that benefit package would be or could be? Over top of the salary?
I mean, I don't know whether the person's going to be single, married, you know.
I got you.
And of all the benefits, that's the big one. A family plan is like 30,000, I think. You know, opposed to, I think, 2 is about, and I haven't looked at this exactly this year, the singles around
I guess the
9.
question for John is, do we budget for the high side and hope for something less, or what do we do?
Well, I was gonna make a motion to make line, 113 supervisor salaries, 110,000. That leaves another 15,000 in there. That's, about $4,000 more than the town manager is making right now, after being here for 10 years. Not here, I need a second, so I'm gonna take it that fails.
What line are we looking at?
It's the supervisor salary, line 113. Currently, it's, if they're asking for,
120.
John made a motion to reduce.
well, now, David, is there enough money in there that it's, well, actually, for 137,469, is that also have any payout, any buyout?
Yeah, my payout was in there.
Okay, so what number would I have to put in there to have 110,000 as a starting salary?
Town manager.
Did you get a second, John?
No,
Steve.
that may not be an issue.
What are all those other things in other line items? that- His salary is the only one coming out of
Yeah.
his salary.
I didn't get a second, so
I'll
never
second
mind.
it for discussion.
John, could you just explain what line you're on for John Burgess?
Line 9, I'm on line 113, supervisor salaries in town manager.
You want to change that to what?
I wanted to change it to set the salary of the new town manager up to 110,000. They can go higher if they want to, if they can find the money some other place.
From 106, 426, up to 10?
No, that figure that we have, the 137, 469, that also includes David's
Buyout,
buyout.
yeah.
So I
That
wanted,
line item, that line there, does it have your buyout? I think it's somewhere else. Oh, the buyout for, I got you.
his retirement, yeah.
No, buyout for his accrued time.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now you and I.
So I have just asked, my motion was that what I wanted to do is set the salary up to 110,000. that's, and again, the selectmen, if they have money some other way on that 15,000, they can adjust to whatever they want to do.
From 120,000. They have it set at 120, you want to drop it down 110. So we're
110.
dropping. Okay, all right.
You'd have to
Never
reduce,
retirement, but accrued leave time.
Right, yeah.
All of this, what does that mean for that final amount in the,
Well, I'm gonna have to calculate that. Because the budget has 39 weeks at the $120,000 rate.
Yeah.
So it'd take a little bit of while to go back and, calculate it out.
Okay.
well, I don't want to vote on anything unless I know what the number's going to be.
Right, so I withdraw my motion, we can deal with it later. And Peter, can you do some calculations?
It's a Thursday night if you want, or...
Okay,
Is there anybody that wants to do a motion for 120? To leave the figure as it is?
Well, you know, do you feel that you'll be able to attract a viable candidate at 110, or?
That's not what I'm getting out of the MRI. You know, Meredith is paying 112, and if they give a 2% raise, they'll be up to 115 for a town manager.
John,
Yes, sir.
quick question, Pete. What's your guesstimate about the amount of money that has been authorized in the 217 budget, general fund, will not be spent? Just a wild guess. Just a wild guess. It's always been in the tens of thousands, hasn't it? What was it last year?
I'd have to have the financial report to see that.
About 70.
About
70,000.
I would recommend doing this. That we calculate this line based upon $110,000 as you want, John.
Okay.
Now, this does not preclude, since we know that there's going to be $60,000, $70,000 not spent in the 2018 budget, it always happens that way, that there's going to be room to transfer money from some account that's underspent to put it into this line as an expenditure. Now, if you want to go ahead and say, well, let's not do the 110,000, we'll do 120,000, it's fine, there's $10,000 more that's not going to be spent.
No, they could start a salary at 120,000.
Beg your pardon?
They could start the salary at 120,000.
Yeah, even if we only have it in the budget as 110.
John's saying we can do it either way.
You guys can do whatever you want to do.
If you want 20,000, either way, either
Yeah,
in the surplus or the line item.
that's right.
You're saying it's not going to stop us from paying somebody $140,000.
Absolutely.
Right,
That's
right.
John's
It's just that we'd be committing to that level going
Right.
forward.
But it also, you know, we don't know what kind of a winter or anything else. We're going to have, things happen, you know, and we're going to have to make this decision in March, way before we know what this budget is going to look like.
That argument should be supported by facts and figures based upon the past. In other words, just a second.
Very well, when you have hurricanes and you have to start hauling in crews from out of state, that can put your budget.
We never budget for what-ifs. We do our best job of expecting what we're going to get. Now, if you come back, if you can show me in the last 5 years that our surplus was practically zero, then I would be concerned. But I suspect it's always been close to 100,000 plus every year. So your argument is what if? It's a scare argument.
You know, and I think, I will agree with you, John, because we can't overspend that bottom line, so we hold up and we play the balancing game as we come down. As you heard, the fire department was just now doing some of those repairs on things. They hold those off until we get to a certain time of the year to know where that budget is. And that's prudent management. That's what you should be hoping we're doing, is paying enough attention to that budget that we're not going to overspend the bottom line.
if you can give me the answer to the question I asked, the last 5 years,
John, I agreed with you. I think we had a surplus. And what I'm saying.
well, I
is
know we've had a surplus.
What I'm saying is that that's good budgeting to have a surplus, that we keep an eye on it, that we don't run down to the last penny. We don't come to you each year and say, oops, we missed it. We overspent, we need another 50,000 or 200,000. We should be doing that. We should have some kind of a surplus as we go into those last months to know what we're gonna need. What happens if a big storm comes in December?
What happens if?
But we have
I've
to do
asked the
that.
question,
I agree with you.
then give me the answers.
I'll send
Okay.
it again.
It's okay.
John, I got a motion.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we carry the selectmen's line forward.
Do what?
I make a motion to carry the selectmen's line forward. Put the same numbers on the line, 137, whatever it is.
I'll second.
I don't agree with that, but that's, I passed out some things that was done from Conway that has all the towns which are also similar to Wolfboro, which, of course, the ones that have been provided by MRI aren't on this list. But I look at a lot of David. He worked here for many years, and he made, say, $105,000. He's been here for 10 years, 11 years. And why we can't attract someone for that same amount of money or a little bit more money, I don't know why we can't do that, that the market's that tight. And a lot of times, you throw all this money at someone, and you're not getting anything better than if you're paying $105,000. And I wish I brought some other stuff, because I have questioned some of these things, these figures that he has on here, from what I got online from the same thing.
Let's take Meredith, and if they give him a 2% raise, that's at 115,000. From your figures, because I calculated 2%. I spent some time looking at those that you had that, yeah, no, you gave that to me. And I did Meredith, which seems to be comparable to who we are in the Lakes region. And I did it 2%, we gave it 2.5, but it was 14,000, blah, blah, blah. So it's about 15,000, that position in this Lakes region.
Exeter, 109.
I trust that the Board of Selectmen will use the MRI process fairly and professionally, and if they do come in under 120,000, it's surplus. It'll go into the surplus fund and maybe at some point be used to offset a future tax hike.
What's that, the hurricane or tornado that's coming through?
That's the one, John. I was thinking about that one.
Okay, so the motion is to keep line 113 at $137,469. Is that what you wanted to say?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. All those in favor of keeping line 113 at $137,469, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Oh, boy. Hand vote, yeah. All those in favor of the motion to keep it at 137,469? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Is there anyone else on your side over there, Bob? Is there somebody else sitting over there?
I bet Bob O'Brien.
Okay.
He said no.
This is going to be one meeting he wished he didn't miss. Okay, that passes. Now, how about this finance director? What do we got for, any surprises on that, or anything?
We decided for the finance director that it's the salary that's in there, and the new town manager will hire his own finance director. We didn't put in, we removed money that the staff had put in to have MRI. We figured it would.
You're going to do it, then we got
The person can do it in-house.
Okay. Anything else, Linda?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you,
Anything else from anybody else?
Leanne says you need to do the health budget yet, but I don't know if you want to do that tonight yet.
Where's the health officer?
He always represents the
We don't have the health officer
No,
here.
we don't want to do
We
it.
don't have a health office
I
anymore?
don't want to.
We do.
Let's just knock it out real
Shelley.
quick. We'll get it done.
Where's the health, where's the health?
Is that Shelley Rondo?
Keep going down. Down.
Here's health.
Okay.
Down half.
Yeah, keep following.
Way in the back?
I think the blue tab.
Added at
does that
one
say
point.
Highways,
Health, I've got it.
Way down. Way down.
health, I got it.
I don't think I'm even gonna push my button. Just gonna do that.
That's why I get rolled in.
Okay.
You know, I noticed that.
Health department. Health officer.
Good to me.
Okay, 100 series.
There's no changes. No changes in the 100 account.
Okay. 200. 300. 500. 600. 800. That's it for the health department.
That didn't take long.
No, that's a $30 increase, 0.48%.
Well, they have
Town manager, do you have anything else?
overall.
David, did you have anything else?
No, I didn't.
Peter? Anything? Leanne?
No, I'm done now.
Anyone else have anything? Okay, a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And we'll be back tomorrow night.